Good morning, everyone. This is our Sunday hybrid service on Zoom, as well as here in our sanctuary. And I'm really happy to be here with everyone today. My name is Rachel Daniels. Today's sermon is titled, "The Upside of Apocalypse is Opportunities." And we're lucky to have a returning guest minister, Reverend Celia Young. And when I was speaking to Reverend Celia on the phone, I said, "Is it Celia or Celia?" And since Celia Cruz is one of my favorite musicians, Celia said, "I don't care. Go with whatever you like." If it's the Latino community, it's Celia. If it's other people, Celia. But anyway, so I'll say Celia, but if it's easier for you, you can say Celia too. We started today's service with Shakira singing "Try Everything." It's from the Disney movie Zootopia. This song was a huge international hit, as well as going platinum here in the USA. And it seems to go well with today's sermon on seeing opportunities to meet the challenges we face. And there is no failure. You just try everything and keep going back. It's all a learning experience and the opportunities that open up to us. And if you look around, whether you're on Zoom or here in the congregation, everyone you see is an important part of our community, each having an essential role in our Sunday services, keeping our doors open, from scheduling speakers to making coffee, building upkeep, rentals to running the sound and PowerPoint, and everyone who attends our Sunday service. All of these people are so important to us, and there's always more to do. If you want to get involved in any number of upcoming or current projects, reach out, because our community is small, but we are very vibrant and we are dedicated. Our guest minister this morning, as I said before, is Reverend Celia. Celia came to the USA as an immigrant and has lived between the East and West for her whole adult life. And that has offered her a unique life experience and worldview. For over 30 years, Reverend Celia has used her life's experience in her consulting and coaching work to achieve social justice in Fortune 500 corporations worldwide. Reverend Celia has coached and developed individual leaders and work teams to follow their North Stars and preserve their integrity. With Reverend Celia's guidance, these leaders and employees have become courageous enough to speak their truth, stand on their highest principles, and help to change their organizational culture to value and nurture the diversity, equity, and inclusion of their people. Reverend Celia has expanded her ministry from the workplace into the larger society, where she will heal the traumatized and suffering, mend the broken heart, the broken human spirit, which also goes into the human heart, and restore the basic goodness of humanity. In addition to principled leadership development, Celia offers life coaching for individuals and groups through her listening salon, through healing circles, grief groups, trauma and resiliency workshops, and personal growth workshops to help people find wholeness and meaning in life. Reverend Celia has a BA in Business Administration, an MBA in Marketing, an MA in Counseling Psychology, and a Master of Divinity equivalent. Reverend Celia is an ordained interfaith chaplain and a member of Tapestry Unitarian Universalist Congregation and Empty Moon Zen. Reverend Celia describes today's service as, whether we are awake or asleep, the pandemic, war, violence, poverty, climate change, attack on democracy, and deterioration of institutions have all continued to threaten our sense of well-being. As modern people, we seem to have lost our connection to ourselves and others. When things are falling apart and the world becomes more broken, this is when real change can happen. Our main doctrine in Unitarian Universalism is love. We care about you and accept you for who and what you are. We recognize that each of us is on our own unique spiritual journey. We share the values of the 7 principles that you use, affirm, and promote. And there's copies of the 7 principles at the entrance of the building. They're on any UU website, and they're also on your screens. And I was trying to think about, was there one particular principle that we could relate to today's service? But I really think that the upside of apocalypse's opportunities is inclusive of all our principles. We face apocalyptic type events on so many levels, personal, in our community, nationally, globally, that seeing the opportunities to connect and enhance our lives by looking at these opportunities, I think involves all of our principles. So, and in thinking about just on our congregational level, what are the risks we need to take? What are the opportunities to get our congregation to grow? And these are things that when Reverend Celia told me about what she was going to be speaking on, I kept thinking, wow, what a great topic for us as a community. And of course, for me personally, but because I've always got so much stuff going on that, and even watching the news, I get just overwhelmed. But, you know, for our congregation, for this community, what are the opportunities? So we got to think outside the box. And if you stay after the service, Reverend Celia will be available for a short time to answer any questions we may have. So please stick around. Everywhere on Sunday mornings, Unitarians light the chalice. And if you have one at home, now's the time to go ahead and light that. And my wonderful husband, Brian, will come up to light the chalice. I think. Oh, he's getting up. Here we go. And our chalice lighting words will be on our screens. And I'd like you guys to unmute. And here in the congregation, we will also read them together. And you at home, you'll be, please unmute yourselves so we can read it together as Don puts them up. Okay. The chalice is a chalice lit. Okay, ready? Here we go. A chalice
lit in our midst is a symbol of our faith.
A faith
built
on the
foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance.
A
faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice.
A faith
that visions a world flourishing
with equality
for all her people.
A faith that demands the living out of goodness.
A faith that requires thoughtfulness.
A faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all this within each of us. Now for our centering thought, please stay unmuted, and here in the congregation, we'll also read the centering thought. Okay, ready? Here we go. If you guys can see it. Okay. If you can find a path, no obstacles, it probably doesn't lead anywhere. And this one was from Frank Clark, who I had no idea who he is. Let me look at the librarians here. John or Bruce, have you heard of Frank Clark? Oh, thank gosh. Okay. American lawyer and politician, born in 1860, died in 1936, and spent 20 years in Congress. But I don't know why they had so many of his quotes all over the place. So he was a Democrat, if that matters. Now we turn to our wonderful music director, Carol Cole, for our opening hymn, Soon the Day Will Arrive.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on on that day, thunderclouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Some have dreamed, some have died to make a good tomorrow, and our vision remains in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed with new hope, not in sorrow, and a promise to make a new start. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Let's repeat that last line. If we share, if we care, you and me.
There's a tenor in the room. And here we are so gathered, Reverend Patricia Sheldon wrote, here is where we gather in the presence of the sacred. Here is where we gather to experience the holy. Here is where together we face the unanswerable questions and acknowledge that not knowing is as sublime as it is frustrating. Here is where we unite in the midst of life and all the glories and suffering it can hold, knowing both are ever present. Here is where we ask, think, risk, discuss, ponder, and offer what might not be welcome or even acceptable somewhere else. Here's where, if we allow it, we're deeply moved. Here's where we encounter each other in deep and powerful ways that surprise us, yet without which we will not survive. Here we gather to worship with fear. Have something different for each of us according to our beliefs, something unnamed, uncategorized, and unusual, yet absolutely necessary. Here we are so gathered, our minds, our hearts, and our souls, and so we worship begin.
Now is the time for our unison affirmation to remind ourselves why we come together. Please unmute at home as we read this together, and it will be on the screen. Love is the spirit,
of this fellowship,
and service,
service is its law.
This is our great covenant
to
dwell
together in peace,
to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Now's the time where we pause our recording for joys and sorrows. This is where PayPal that for which fund it's to go to. Okay, please stand as you are able while we sing to each other. And of course, everyone at home will stay muted, but please sing along. Mercy to you I give.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Thank you. For our meditation this morning, we will play a short music clip that the very wonderful Matthew Taylor brought to our congregation some 4 years ago. Close your eyes, breathe in and out, and just loosen away your burdens. Breathe, close your eyes, sit back, and relax.
This morning, my topic is a bit provocative. So please be prepared to challenge yourself. In this modern world, walking around in the mall among ordinary people, we might not know, but can imagine many of us are having difficulties in our personal life. Some of us might experience loss, isolation, and disconnectedness. Some of us can have trouble with relationship, money, or career. And some of us might suffer from trauma, abuse, pain, illness, family dysfunction, death, and dying. On top of all that, we're threatened day and night by the pandemic, war, violence, hunger, poverty, climate change, power corruption, attack on democracy, and deterioration of institutions, just to name a few. All that make us feel like the world is ending. When I first heard this term, apocalypse, it brought up a lot of fears and dread in me. If the end of the world is here, I worry about survival. I feel I can only save myself. So I started thinking small and became self-centered. I worry about scarcity. Many people probably think the same way. When species want to survive, they will do their best to conserve their resources and energy. This is natural. Years ago, someone gave me a cactus, thinking that since I had no green thumb, a cactus will be the easiest for me to care for. They didn't realize I didn't water it once. So to save itself, the cactus started to shrivel, and its energy and water went to its core, and its outer layers dried up. This survival strategy did keep the cactus alive for a while, but eventually it died. Without nourishment, organisms will die. In Suzanne Simart's book, Finding the Mother Tree, she wrote about the shared wisdom of the forest, where the trees share information and nutrients to survive. We sometimes forget that all species, including humans on this planet, rely on each other to survive. Life is not a zero-sum game. If we truly believe we're all in this together and we are interconnected as one species and one system, we ought to know that we're not out here alone. To save ourselves as a group, not just individuals, we ought to open our hearts and pores to share our deepest resources, that is love and compassion. When things are falling apart, the world becomes so broken. This is when real change can happen, because the ending often represent amazing chance for a bright beginning. Let me explain a little. The universe has its self-correcting principle. When a force is going to one extreme, a counter force will naturally want to go to the other extreme. Eventually, the universe will find its equilibrium after swinging back and forth a few times. Remember the infinity sign? This is how the universe works. We Chinese have an old saying, 50 years on the west side of the river, 50 years on the east side of the river. It takes 100 years for the universe to find that equilibrium. Maybe the world needs to go through some of these apocalypse time to reach a point of renewal. This reminds me of a story about a man who visited his friend, the farmer. The farmer's dog was moaning next to him. He asked the farmer, "What's wrong with your dog?" The farmer said, "He's sitting on a nail." The man asked, "Why doesn't the dog just get off the nail?" The farmer said, "Because the pain is not high enough." Maybe we need to reach a point of extreme pain before we act to self-correct. Are we there yet? I remember one of my darkest days long ago. I went to see my therapist. I asked her, "How do I know I hit bottom?" She said, "When you do, you will know, because there's nowhere else to go but up." At that time, I didn't realize how Zen-like this advice was. Often something happened that wake us up and change our life, whether it's a life-threatening illness, accident, or serious loss. This is when we know we have hit bottom. My life-changing moment happened when I lost my father and my job and walked away from a marriage all in the same year. I had to sit myself down and take a serious look at myself and my life. I had no choice but to listen to my inner voice and figure a way out and up. I'm grateful that a part of me didn't let me just fall through the bottom and die away. The awakening consciousness, such as the women's protest in Iran and the anti-war and exodus in Russia, show that generations of totalitarian regimes' brutal force might be facing the beginning movement of a counterforce. One can only hope. For over 30 years, I worked as an external consultant to help my client organization change from the inside out. I helped them examine their current culture, including the way they do business. I help them explore how and where they have lost the appeal to their customers. If your market is changing, you can either choose to follow and adapt or choose to stay the same and risk becoming extinct. We don't change and grow, we'll die. This is true for individuals as well as organizations. So what kind of change do we need? Change sometimes like remodeling a house. We can do some cosmetic change to make it look more appealing, or we can do structural change to make it more functional. Do we just change the paint color, stage it with different furniture? Or do we knock out the wall, build a new kitchen, or make a bedroom larger? Sometimes we have to do both to add significant value to our house. When the customers are changing and becoming more diverse, making a cosmetic change will not sustain itself. It is like printing fancy brochures in multiple languages, putting advertising on Spanish-speaking TV channel, or tweaking existing products. It might not be enough. One of my clients was an insurance company. For years, it never considered the gay and lesbian population as potential customers, until one day it discovered, based on market survey, that gay and lesbian market is growing. So the company decided it should create an insurance product that would cater to a gay couple's needs. This led to the development of their domestic partner benefit policy. But according to its organization culture audit, we found out that this company culture continues to show its homophobic tendency and foster a hostile work environment toward the gay and lesbian workforce. They didn't understand that their employees are the ears and the eyes of their customers. Pretty soon, the customers smell the hypocrisy and turn away from them. They learn that they cannot treat the customers better than their employees and get away with it for long. You may wonder why I reference my business experience. I do it because the principle of change is the same for individuals and organizations. To make lasting change, we need to be congruent between our inside and our outside. And we need to discover and follow the natural rhythm in us and other systems. So what's the current rhythm in the religious world according to Gallup poll for, I think I missed the page somewhere. Well, that's okay. I'll go back to that one later. And sorry about that. Oh, here we are. Well, some say, for instance, the reason abortion ban in the US is the last stand the conservative can take as counterforce against the increasingly diverse and progressive force of our country. This is the natural rhythm and of the universe. And hopefully we can endure the chaos and hardship so that we can come to a new equilibrium. When things are falling apart, one thing we can do is to notice each other's and ourselves on the way down. This is where the opportunity to change happens. My Gestalt training teach me the paradoxical theory of change. This theory can be summarized this way. Change happens when persons become what they are, not when they try to become what they are not. In other words, we cannot make ourselves and anyone change in line with some ideal, but we can naturally change in an organic, meaningful, and orderly way if we only allow ourselves and others to be as we and they truly are. To make change happen, we must first fully understand who we are and why we are the way we are. Change is an inside-out process. My inside-out work led me through healing old wounds and sprouting new growth. This is true for individuals as well as organizations. Change doesn't happen when we use coercion or persuasion by pushing or pulling. We can identify the desire to change and the resistance to change inside any organization. This is the fuel we need to make change happen. Okay, now we got to go find the other page. Somehow it's missing somewhere. Oh, here. So here is a page I talk about that I missed talking about in the beginning. For 30 years, I worked as a consultant to help my client organization change from the inside out. I help them examine their existing culture, the way they do business. I help them explore how they lose their appeal for the customers. So this is what's going on. So what happened is in the current, how we call religious world, according to Gallup poll, for 60 years from 1940 to 2000, 70% Americans claim they belong to a church. But in 2020, the number went down to 47%. This more than 20% declines within 20 years is a drastic change that can pose an existential threat for the churches. In the old days, a church was the center of every village life. It was the vortex for the community to revolve around. The reasons for this decline are many. We could all speculate. The reasons, and one of them is generational change, obviously. The aversion towards the doctrine and the hierarchical system and lack of trust toward institution are some of the key elements this mass exodus happened. To change and grow, like any organism, churches need to do the same inside out work. They need to ask themselves if they are still relevant and are still serving the need of their community. They need to ask what the community is hungry for, and why they think they're qualified and ready to serve. The good news is when other churches' attendance and membership are down, Unitarian Universalism has a perfect chance to become the sanctuary for those who are searching but allergic to the traditionally hierarchical and ritualistic system. Facing the decline in trust of the institution, we UUs have an opportunity to step in and offer ourselves as the alternative, because we practice democratic process and we welcome any tradition as an interfaith organization. Talking about being interfaith, my mother had her unique way of practice. When I was a preteen living in Taiwan, there was a period she would take me to a different worship place every Sunday. This week, Catholic, next week, Baptist, then the following week, Mormon, and then Buddhist temple, and so on. Finally, I asked, what are we doing? She said, honey, we're buying insurance. We cannot offend anybody's God. My mother was a truly equal opportunity churchgoer. Of course, for her, it was all about socializing with her friends. Plus, she was very attracted to the great potluck every Sunday. How can I judge her faith and insincerity? I like to think a typical UU congregation can offer the most scrumptious potluck of food for the souls. Like a good potluck, we UUs have various ways of framing the concept of divine. We are humanistic and we believe in the interconnectedness of all beings. To me, this means we believe that a divine spirit is bigger than the sum of all of us. This is what we can offer to the world, and we should be very attractive to the spiritual but not religious crowd out there. We should stake a claim as a true interfaith organization. This is an opportunity in this broken world. However, to change and grow, we UUs must be willing to change ourselves too. Change takes place when we discover the forces for change and growth. I call it motivation. And the forces to stay the same, I call it resistance. So what is the motivation to change and grow within us? We want to offer a better world for all the future generations to come. We want to be of service. We want to share our 7 principles and 6 different sacred sources. We want to offer our love and compassion so there will be peace and harmony on earth. We want to make a difference so that our destiny, because our destiny is forever tied to one another. We want our institution to survive so that our future generations can benefit the fruits of our labor. We want to build longevity and a legacy in honor of our ancestors. Next, we ought to examine our resistance to change. Resistance to change often comes from discomfort and fear of the unknown that make us hang on tight to what we have and what we know. We seal ourselves up, and when there is no movement or air inside, the organ will die. When in chaos and suffering, it is easier just to close our heart and stay in fear. Fear has us do all kinds of things that alienate our true self and others. We see dangers everywhere, are reluctant to take a chance, to experiment and try something new. We hesitate to take in new ideas from people who are different from us. Every time we say we have always done it this way as an excuse to refuse to try new things, we are stuck. The strength of us, you, lies in our intellect. We are firmly grounded in our fourth principle that says we follow a free and responsible path to search for truth and meaning. We use typically live in our brains, and we're damn proud of it. We are not only intellectual, but also fiercely independent people who have lots of opinions. We often have a hard time trusting others because we think we have the right answer. The challenge is for us to come together and make change happen when there is no one right answer. We say we're a welcoming congregation, welcoming community, open to everyone, but we need to examine how welcoming we are to the viewpoints of those who are different from us based on education, race, culture, age, and political affiliations, just to name a few. Sometimes our strength can become our resistance to change. The Chinese word for risk means danger and opportunity. At this dangerous time, our opportunity to change and grow is now. But yesterday's success formula may not work for us tomorrow. If we're not open enough to take in fresh and different ideas, can we still grow and thrive and get beyond just survival? In Kevin Costner's movie, Field of Dreams, I hope everybody's seen that one, the voice said, you build it, they will come. Well, to me, this is not some woo-woo stuff dreamed about by the Hollywood crowd. This is actually, if we sit quietly long enough and listen to ourselves, we will hear the truth from the depth of ourselves. Our intuition and insights will point us to the right path. They will show that what kind of field we need to build. This field must be connected to the deep hunger and need of our fellow human beings and the universe. It is our mission at this moment of crisis. This is not a retail store that we keep open and hope the customers will find us. We don't just call our place of worship the sanctuary for nothing. We have built this field not just for ourselves, but for the larger world. We must let our presence known and felt by the community we serve. Before I close, I have a few questions for people in this congregation. In this chaotic time, how do you want to grow and change as individuals and as an organization? What are your motivations to change and resistance to change? How will you meet the world where they are and make a difference? What does it take for you to see the opportunities beyond the apocalypse? Although this world seems very scary right now, if we open the window and let some fresh air in, we may see the endless sky. Here's a quote from an early century monk. The barn has burned down. Now I can see the moon. We cannot change the world by coercion or persuasion, but we can change the world by being in tune with what is hurting and hungry for and try to meet its needs. This required us to be soft, float like a river, and be willing to keep our hearts and mind open. Namaste.
Would everyone join me, please, in singing One More Step? And that's page 168. Please stand if you want to. One more step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step, one more word. We will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word, one more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer, one more song. We will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll say one more song. Thank you.
Now is the time to extinguish our chalice. Brian will come up and extinguish our chalice. Thank you, dear. This flame represents our intentional and unconditional love that we will carry with us, bringing light, friendship, and compassion into the world.
Between dawn and dusk of our being, let us be brave and loving. In our little passage through the light, let us sustain and forward the human venture in gentleness, in service, and in thought. Go in peace.
Now please stand and form a circle. And I want everyone to remember, as we're standing here, that Reverend Celia will be around for a few minutes after our service. And I know I certainly want to get a copy of the questions to ponder. So, and if you have any comments or questions, Reverend Celia will be here. So please stand as you're able. We'll form a circle for our Let There Be Peace on Earth.